I was thinking that we would continue with some of the balancing work that we were playing with in our last class. And
Balancing is always good.
yes, that is what I was thinking. And also, I think balancing, I think there are many things that can help us to refine our experience of how the pieces of our bodies come together. And balancing in many ways, at least to me, is a bit of a lens, a little bit of a microcosm even for feeling into the things that are in the way of our feeling connected, grounded, light and lifted, all those kinds of things that we try to cultivate in our practice. And what I would like us to focus on today are how finding the corners of our feet helps us to experiment with that dance of where we need to connect and strengthen, where we need to soften and create more ease, so that we're playing with this dynamic balance, looking for a place that's easeful without dullness and strong without hardness or rigidity. And when we're talking about the feet and we're talking about the foundation, the root of any given pose, we have a place to play and experiment. So before we move into our somatics practice, I want us just to have a look at our feet. You can have a look at your feet in any position that you like. It could be seated, could be laying down, whatever's comfortable for you. But I want us to find both visually and physically a couple of markers on our feet that we're going to use as our anchor points. And I know we've talked about these points in class before, but I just want to make sure that we're all really clear on where those points are so that we really can play with how shifting our weight between these places on the foot gives us an ability to play with that dynamic balance of softening, connecting, stabilizing in our standing poses, even as we take feet away from the mat to balance those kinds of things. So as you look at your foot, first, see if you can find the very center of your heel. And you can find this by looking at your foot and touching, or you can find it by putting your foot down on the mat and feeling. Both are great ways to figure out where that place is. But see if you can find the center of the heel. So that's going to be point number one. Point number two is going to be the base of the little toe. And the base of the little toe is where the movable, smaller bones of the toe connect into the long bone of the foot. And so if you use your hands and feel up along the outer edge of your foot, you'll feel that there's a bony, round place where the little toe begins. So not the tip of the little toe, but closer in towards the center of the foot. We're going to call that the base of the little toe or the little toe ball mound. So that's
So
point
you're
number
talking
two.
about the knuckle. I put that in quotes between
Yeah,
the
it's kind of like the knuckle. Like if you're thinking about your hand, this would be the largest of the knuckles where your finger
yeah.
connected into the palm. Same thing is true in the foot. So it sounds like you've got the right place. And then the third place is the base of the big toe. And that, of course, will be in that same kind of area. It'll be the end of this first metatarsal, this first long bone making up the top of the foot. And those 3 points, of course, make a triangle. And those are the points that we're going to play with rooting down and connecting through both when we're active and standing on our feet, and also as a way to link up and connect from the feet up into the center of the body. So, whenever the feet are connected to the ground. So,
So
if you,
as a sanity check,
yes,
if I lift my toes, the part of the foot that's going to touch the mat is in fact directly under that knuckle.
Exactly. And in fact, that's what I was just going to say. So, one of the things that we'll play with and that you can play with at any point you need to is lifting the toes to help find those places. And finding those places is really a refinement of sensing into the foot. The foot we can think of as sort of a unit that clops along, or we can look into it and feel into it a little more deeply to find how are the toes working? How are the heels connecting? Where are these triangular points that are the anchor of the foot? And lifting the toes is an excellent way to try to get there.
Okay.
So now that we've found those points and we kind of know what those landmarks are like, let's come down onto our backs. So go ahead and make your way down onto your back on your mat. And of course, as you find a place where you feel supported by the floor, give yourself some time to connect in towards your breath. Just as finding these corners of our feet is a way to help us refine our awareness. Tuning into the flow of the breath is, of course, yet another tool to help synchronize the experience of the body and the awareness and the presence of our minds. As you turn your gaze towards your breath, as you feel the richness of your breath expand as a part of your awareness, first start by softening inwards. And give yourself a few cycles of breath here, using any way that helps you really feel into how your breath moves your body. That might be breathing into the planes of the body. It might be sending your breath deep through your center. Whatever it is that really helps your breath to become alive and a part of your experience. Give yourself a last breath or two here. And then continuing to let your breath flow easily in and out of your body. Bend your knees if your knees aren't already bent, and bring your feet down onto the mat in a place that feels comfortable to you. And then let's see if we can find those same points, those same corners of the foot here in this position. I find it much, much easier to work with one foot at a time. So pick one foot to start with and see if you can visualize and feel down into the center of the heel. You might find you need to move your feet. Sometimes the position of the foot affects how we find this centermost point. But see if you can find a place on this one foot where you can feel the center of the heel soften and anchor down towards the mat. And you might notice that there are some places that you need to soften from, some adjustments that you might need to make to find this centered place. Balance is often about letting go of the things that we don't need to come back into a place where we feel more aligned and more connected. And we're going to use our feet, as I was saying earlier, as our way of exploring how do we dance with that act of letting go of things, of re-engaging with things. Once you found the center of that heel, then draw your attention up through the outer edge of that foot to the base of the little toe. As you said, Dad, lifting and spreading the toes can be a really great way to find that point at the base of the little toe. So lift the toes if you need to, and see if you can keep both the center of the heel and the base of the little toe anchoring down to the mat. And then once you've got the center of the heel and the base of the little toe, see if you can come across to the base of the big toe. Let that point anchor down as well. And notice how bringing these points both alive in your awareness and into active connection with the ground makes your feet work. You're actually activating the muscles of the foot and the muscles of the lower leg, perhaps in a different way. And then from the base of the big toe, see if you can close that triangle, drawing a little energy back from the base of the big toe into the center of the heel again. Just notice, where do you need to engage? Where do you need to soften from in order to let these 3 points have balanced connection to the mat? And then do the same with the other foot. Start from the center of the heel. And then once you've found that connection point, come up along the outer edge and see if you can find the base of the little toe. You can lift and spread the toes here. See if you can really intentionally connect down into the mat through the base of the little toe. And keeping the center of the heel and the base of the little toe, come across to the base of the big toe. Again, see if you can bring all 3 of those points into an active connection with the ground and an active place of awareness in your brain. And then from the base of the big toe, come back to the center of the heel again. And just as on the other side, notice what might need to shift, what might need to adjust to allow your feet to have this more integrated connection with the mat. If you lifted your toes, make sure you've let them soften back down again. And see if you can feel how anchoring these corners of the feet lets the feet be alive, lets the legs be more dynamically connected to themselves. And then noticing how moving your body shifts which points are connected to the mat. When you feel like you're ready, start to gently make your way into that arch shape. Let your pelvis rock towards your toes. Let your belly soften and rise up. Let your back contract as you root your hips down until you feel contraction along the muscles of the low back. And check in with the feet. Maybe things have shifted, maybe things haven't, but see if you can notice how arching your back might change what's happening in your feet. And then, as always, slowly let the contraction from your back go so that you're melting and sinking down through the back as you allow the effort to soften out of those muscles in the back body. And then when you're ready, reverse that shape. Rock your pelvis so that it rolls towards the top of your head, letting the low back press down, letting the sitting bones curl up, feeling the muscles in the front plane of the body contract and shorten. And again, notice how that might affect the feet. And then slowly let that go. Again, coming out as slowly and gently as you can. We'll go back and forth for a couple of cycles here. As you inhale, let the front body lengthen. And rolling your pelvis towards your toes, let the sitting bones press down. Maybe even let the back ribs start to draw down towards the low back. And then really slowly release that contraction. And once you've come all the way to 0, following an exhale, roll your pelvis towards you, the low back sink down. And then once you've made that contraction in the front body conscious, slowly let it go. Give yourself 2 more cycles here. As you arch, what shifts and changes in the feet as the back muscles contract? And when you let that contraction go, can you soften not just from the back, but from the outer hips, from the legs if they also engaged, letting the weight come back to a place that feels even through all 3 points of the feet. Again, as you round your back, as you feel the front body contract and shorten, what happens to the weight in the feet? I know in my body, when I arch, the weight goes to the outside of the feet. And when I curl, it shifts a little to the inside. But again, as you let go through the front body, Can you feel how the weight in the feet shifts back again, letting it come back to a place where the corners of both feet are anchored down? Let your hands slide back behind your head when you're ready. And keeping your feet connected to the ground, let your knees come a little bit out towards the sides. So we'll add lifting the head, contracting a little bit more into the front body as we round the back so that the head and the shoulders start to come up away from the mat. We're going to start with an inhale, letting the knees lean out, but keeping the soles of the feet very gently connected to the ground. Use your inhale to broaden the front body. Lengthen top to bottom, side to side. See if you can allow the flow of your breath to help you feel how the front body can be filled and can expand. And then soften the work from your back body. Let your breath flow back out and rest back down onto the mat. Letting the knees start in this wider position. With your exhale, rock your pelvis towards you. And as you rock, drawing the low back down, feel how the knees come in towards one another as you tone through your belly. Feel your chin reach towards the sky, and then supporting your head, start to contract a little more through your chest, through the front body, to lift your head and shoulders a little bit up away from the mat. And then slowly let that go. And as you let the front body soften and broaden, and let the knees melt back out towards the sides as you let your pelvis return back to neutral. We'll take that cycle a couple of times. Notice how as the knees come to the side, the weight shifts towards the outer edges of the feet. As you breathe in, let the front body expand. Notice how this brings you into a little arch and feel how that takes the knees wider and brings the weight more to the outer edges of the feet. And then slowly let that go. And feel how the weight returns a little more towards the center of the foot again. As you exhale, round your back, contract through the front body. Feel how the inner thighs lift the knees, how the front body closes as the back rounds, lifting the head up a little bit if you like. Notice where the weight goes in the feet, and then slowly let that work go. See if you can feel the back of your neck lengthen, the sitting bones get heavy, the inner thighs soften as you come back to zero effort. Give yourself one more cycle like that. As you breathe in, let filling the front body with your breath bring you into a little arch, letting the back body help out in any way that's necessary to breathe the front body open. And then let that go as slowly and smoothly as you can. And when you're ready, as you exhale, feel how rounding your back draws the knees towards one another, how it shifts the weight on the feet. Again, if you like, lift the head and the chest, really letting the weight of the head rest into the hands so that you aren't straining with your neck, but are really closing from the chest down towards the low belly. And then very slowly allow yourself to come back down. Feel the neck lengthen, the chest broaden, the inner thighs soften, the sitting bones get heavy. And then as you're ready, once you finish that cycle, let your knees point back up towards the ceiling if that's not where they finished. And let your arms come down by your sides in a way that's comfortable for you. Connect back down into the corners of the feet again. See if you can send your attention down into particularly the anchor point at the center of the heel, making sure that there's close to an even distribution between the base of the big toe and the base of the little toe. We're going to rock the hips from side to side. So when you're ready, start to let the left hip press down into the mat. As you let the right hip lift up, see if you can keep the right heel connecting down. Notice where you might need to soften and release from to allow the foot to stay grounded as you rock the hips. And then release the press of that left hip and let that lower that right hip back down to the mat. Rocking in the opposite direction, let the right hip press down. Again, as you press the right hip down, see if you can let the left heel stay weighty. In my body, that means I have to be softer and more released through the connection of the front of the thigh up into my belly. And then slowly let that go. Letting your hips rock back to neutral as you let the right side soften. So we'll go back and forth a couple of times here. As you press the left heel down, let the right heel stay grounded, and maybe start to feel how this action of rocking the hips and grounding through the opposite heel sends the right knee forward towards your toes. And then slowly let go, letting your pelvis rock back to neutral, feeling how the knee draws back in. Going the other way, right hip presses down. As the left hip rises up, see if you can keep an anchor point through the center of the heel. Feel how the left knee reaches forward. And then slowly let that go. So we'll take a couple more cycles here, moving at your own pace. Again, as you press the left hip down to rock the right hip up, let the right heel stay grounded. Feel how that moves the right knee forward. And then slowly release. This is an essential piece of walking here. See if you can let this movement really originate from the back body. And as you do a little less from the front of the thigh, from the hip flexors, you can feel how that allows the feet to stay more connected to the earth. As you come back to center this next time, pause and rest. We're going to play with that action one more time, adding on one more piece. And that's a little bit of connection into the upper body through the shoulders. So we're going to start by rocking that left hip down again. Keep the right heel gently anchored. Let the left hip press down. And now draw the right shoulder back towards the floor as you press the left hip down. So it's as if taking the right shoulder back sends the right knee forward. And then slowly let that go. We'll try that action a couple of times. As you press the right hip down to lift the left hip, press the left shoulder back towards the floor. Let those two actions help you to really feel that left knee reach forward out towards the toes. And then slowly let go. Again, we'll take a couple of cycles like that. Press the right shoulder back as you press the left hip down. Let taking the right shoulder back help you to reach the right knee forward. Center of the right heel stays soft and anchored to the mat. And then release that effort to come back to neutral. Left shoulder presses back, right hip presses down to rock the hips and send the left knee forward. And then slowly release. Give yourself one more cycle to each side. Connect through the diagonal of the back. Left hip and right shoulder. Send the right knee forward and the right hip up. And they release their effort to bring you back to center. Left shoulder and right hip press down to send the left knee forward. And then release. Take a moment to rest as you get there. Now taking one final somatics pattern here. Cross your left knee over top of the right. With the left knee, it can either be left knee stacked or it can be the left ankle on the right knee, whichever version you prefer. We'll be moving towards rotating a little bit more deeply through the body. Make sure your arms are in a comfortable position. And when you're ready, start to rock the left hip down, right hip up. Knees are going to be swaying over towards the left. But let this movement begin in the center of the body. Slowly lowering the weight of the legs over towards the left, letting the right shoulder stay down. Pausing when you start to feel a stretch or the shoulder lift on the right side. And then engaging through the right to lift the legs back up. Come up most of the way. And then release from the right.
to lower the legs back over towards the left. Feel the rocking of the hip and the rotating of the spine, as well as the lengthening of the right side. We'll take a couple of cycles. As you lift and lower the leg, see if you can let your foot be soft. Just as you were softening that work up at the top of the thigh to keep the heel grounded. See if you can soften the work through the toes and the foot so that lifting and lowering the legs is really coming from the side body. Give yourself 2 more cycles. To lift the legs, the right hip pulls towards the mat and up towards the right shoulder. And to lower the legs, that contraction releases, letting the right side of the back, the right side of the body get long as you move into this rotating spiral. One final cycle, taking all the time you need to finish it. And then as you're ready, let the legs come back up to center. Bring both feet down onto the mat just for a moment, just feeling. Noticing how that right side is in comparison to the left. And then when you're ready, cross the left knee over top of the right, or again, if you're working with the ankle at the knee, take that variation. Again, let the foot be soft. See if you can direct your attention into the center of the body rather than working with the foot and the ankle, and letting the hips rock and the left side of the body lengthen. Let the knees and the legs come over towards the right. And left shoulder will stay down. The hip and the shoulder are moving apart from one another. And once you've found whatever your amount of rotation is, no stretch, no strain, then focus on the left side, letting the foot and the ankle be soft. Engage through the left side to lift the legs. And release through the left side to lower them back over towards the right. Again, we'll take another 4 or so cycles here. As you take a last 2 cycles, see if you can continue to maintain that sense of softness at the hip and the thigh. That sense of ease through the foot and the ankle to really guide your mind's attention into the working of that left side, contracting to lift and then releasing to lower, finishing the cycle that you're on, taking all the time you need to get there. And then as you're ready, let the legs come back up. And again, take a moment with both feet down on the mat. And come back to that place where you can connect through those 3 corners of both feet. Really invite your attention to each one of those points in turn. Again, you can do the feet separately, you can do them at the same time. See if you can find the center of the heel, the base of the little toe, the base of the big toe, and the center of the heel again. We all walk in very different ways, so you might notice that one of those points, or even multiples of those points, usually it's just one, are particularly difficult to find. See if you can draw your attention into whichever point that is, and really hold your focus there. Notice how that shifts your connection through the legs up into the center of the body. And then as if you were going to keep your feet connected to the ground, start to draw your knees in towards you. And as your knees come in, you can bring your hands onto them or not, as you prefer. See if you can find those 3 corners of the feet again. Can you find the center of the heel, the base of the little toe, the base of the big toe, even with your feet away from the mat? And does that help you to find a place where you're a little more long through your spine? Setting up for a twist. activating the inner thighs, reaching the sitting bones back and apart. Let your arms come into a T or bent like a cactus, and take your knees over to one side. See if you can maintain that connection through the feet, finding those three corners as you invite your body to rotate, noticing how it might change the sensation of your twist. When you're ready, bring the legs back up. Keep checking in with those corners, readjusting, rebalancing as you need. When you're ready, take the legs over towards whatever your second side is. Again, see if you can really hold that sense of presence through the corners of the feet. And then bring them back up as you're ready. Give yourself one more cycle to each side. Of course, with the feet away from the mat, it's much more difficult to find those connection points. See if you can notice, which points do you lose? What places are easy to feel into as you move? And keep shifting and adjusting, trying to find a place that feels alive and connected through the feet. Of course, taking that final cycle over towards the second side. And then bringing the legs back up again. Let the feet come down onto the mat. And of course, as ever, find the corners of the feet. When you're ready, reach your arms up towards the sky. Interlace your fingers, put your palms up and away, and reach up with your hands. As you reach up with the hands, see if you can keep the corners of the feet, noticing how that might change the sensation from what you did when you rounded your back in our somatics practice. Keeping the corners of the feet, let your shoulders come towards your ears. Let your chest soften, keeping the ribs down, letting the collarbones broaden, and take the arms overhead. And as you take the arms overhead, see if you can connect down into the center of the heel, base of the little toe, base of the big toe, and up through your back, through your neck, through the top of your head, and out through the palms of your hands. And let the arms rise back up. Take the opposite cross. And as you reach up with the hands, again, let the ribs sink back, but see if you can find the corners of the feet. Once you've found the corners of the feet, then let the shoulders move towards your ears and towards the floor. And keeping the back ribs anchored, keeping the corners of the feet anchored, let the arms come overhead. See if you can notice whether playing with the feet helps you to find a place where the curves of your spine feel more alive. There should be a little rise away from the mat in the low back, a little rounding in the upper back, and a little curve at your neck. Let the arms rise back up. And releasing your hands, make your way into a tabletop position. As you find your table, take a moment to see if you can find that same active connection through your feet. Now, with the feet facing up towards the sky, it's a very different thing to find the base of the little toe, the base of the big toe, the center of the heel. See if you can invite your mind to play with that connection with the feet, noticing how that might shift and adjust what's happening in the hips. And then taking a couple of cycles through cat and cow. As you're ready, moving nice and slow, let your tail reach down. And as ever, see if you can send that wave from the bottom of the spine up towards the top, moving each vertebra up towards the sky, feeling the front body close. And checking in with the corners of the feet here as you move into this very familiar shape. And then when you're ready, let go from the front body, coming back to neutral. Again, keeping some connection through those corners of the feet when you're ready. Sitting bones move back and apart. See if you can start at the pelvis and the sacrum. And let that wave travel again from bottom to top up through the spine, coming into cow. When you're ready, release from the back, Find neutral. We'll go one more time in each direction. And as you round your back, what helps you to stay connected through the feet? For me, it's letting my toenails click down and reaching through my heels, which really helps me not just to stay alive in the feet, but also to feel more connected in my hips, in the center of my body. And of course, release as you're ready. Letting the spine re-lengthen. One more time into the back bend. Again, if you root down through the toenails, if you reach through the heels, how does that change the experience of coming into cow?
Give yourself a breath here, letting the front body lengthen. And then release.
Moving towards the right, draw the right hip up, right shoulder down. Notice how shortening on that side shifts the weight of the feet, even when they're not connected to the mat. And then slowly let go. Going to the left, left hip draws up, left shoulder draws down. See if you can close through the whole space of the left side. And then release that contraction to come back to neutral. Give yourself one more cycle to each side. Right hip pulls up, right shoulder pulls down. And then let that go. One final time towards the left. And release back to neutral. And then keeping the hands grounded, tuck your toes and bring yourself into downward facing dog. As you find your down dog, root through the bases of the toes. So, of course, the base of the big toe, the base of the little toe are easier to find perhaps in this position because they're anchoring down to the ground. And see if you can reach through the center of the heel and let connecting through the corners of the feet help you to align through the hips so that you feel columns of energy rising up from the arches of the feet deep into the center of the body. And then reach down from your outer hips, from the base of your ribs, back and out through those corners of the feet, anchoring yourself to the mat. And then when you're ready, glide yourself forward into plank. As you find your plank, as you bring the heels over the balls of the toes, see if you can keep reaching through the corners of the feet. And then as you shift back to downward facing dog, as you let the shoulder blades move, as you fold back at the hips, see if you can maintain that sense of connection. When you're ready, shift forward one more time, finding plank, again, reaching through the corners of the feet, drawing up from the arches into your center. And then shift back. Final time, come forward to plank. And this time come down onto the mat. As you come down, especially if it's been helping you to connect through the feet, let the toenails click down, find the bases of the big toe and the little toe. Let the heel reach up towards the sky, finding the center of the heel. And let that help you to soften a little bit at the front of the hips to find a place where the legs feel connected up into your center. And with the arms or whatever position you prefer by your sides, set up like a classic cobra, breathing into the belly, let the shoulders rise. The shoulder blades draw towards one another and down the back, curling yourself up away from the mat through the strength of your back body. And then slowly let that contraction go, coming all the way back down to rest. And as ever, we'll take that action 2 more times. Again, letting the front body lengthen, inviting the back body to close, moving up away from the mat. And then releasing, softening that effort in the back body, coming all the way back down to rest. Give yourself one more cycle. And as you finish, take a moment just to rest into the support of the floor. And then when you're ready, make your way back, downward facing dog. Nice. As you connect through the feet, again, reach through the corners, pull up through the arches, and let that help you to take the tops of the thighs and the hips way back behind you so that you're folding more cleanly at the hips and providing length for the spine. And let the top of your head reach towards the mat, like you were letting your head dangle. And see if you can lift the inner shoulders and broaden your collarbones so that you're providing more internal connection so that you can soften the rounding in the upper back. Maybe let the heels start to sprout towards the mat, lengthening along the back line of the legs. We'll be here a couple more breaths if you like. Bend one knee, reaching it towards the mat. Let the opposite heel reach towards the floor, walking in place. And then reverse. As you play with this action, as much as you can, let it be like that walking action we practiced on our backs. See if you can reach through the centers of the heels and let the movement of the legs come from rocking the hips. Give yourself one more cycle to each side. And then start to let the feet make their journey forward and come into a forward fold. So now we really have the opportunity to feel the weight come down through our feet in a more active way. So in this forward fold, making sure you're comfortable bending the knees in whatever way you need to. See if you can find the centers of both heels. Lifting the toes if you'd like. See if you can find the base of the little toe. And then the base of the big toe. And then connect that back to the center of the heel. And now keeping the weight even in the corners of the feet. Bring your hands up onto your knees. And as you inhale, extend your spine forward. Just notice, do you need to change how you extend forward to keep the weight even in the corners of the feet? And with your exhale, come back down into your forward fold. Take that action 2 more times. Again, let your attention be with the corners of the feet. As you inhale and extend, can the weight stay even? And as you exhale and fold, of course, where do you need to shift and adjust as you bow back down and in? One more time here. Inhaling, extending. And exhaling, folding back in. Then take your hands to your hips. And keeping the weight even in the corners of the feet, come back up to stand. Now, before we start to move with the breath, close your eyes or keep your eyes open but soft and your focus in your feet. And take a little bit of time swaying forwards and back. Sway forwards enough that you feel the weight come into the toes. And then ground the center of the heel until you come back to a place where those points are balanced. And let your weight sway back towards your heels, feeling the toes get light. And then see if you can root down through the base of the big toe, base of the little toe to bring yourself again back into a plate where they're evenly weighted. Give yourself a couple of cycles, just moving forwards and backwards, playing with finding the place where the heels disconnect, and then using grounding the heel to bring you back to a place where you feel centered. Same as you move backwards, of course, feeling the toes get light, and then grounding through the toes to bring yourself back to center. When you're ready, try side to side. As you sway towards the left, feel the weight shift to the outer edge of the left foot, inner edge of the right. And then see if you can ground through the lifted side to come back to center. And try swaying the other way. Finding the outer edge of the right foot, inner edge of the left, and then ground through the lighter side, centering through the heel to bring yourself back to center. Give yourself one more cycle. Just playing with shifting out of balance and using connecting the points of the feet as evenly as you can to the ground to come back to center. And as you find center, stay there.
Let this connection through the feet help to keep the lower body steady, and we'll start to move in the upper body with the breath, so letting your arms be down by your sides. As you exhale, rotate the palms to the back, round forward, see if you can keep the weight even in the corners of the feet. Let your chin curl in so that you're letting go through the neck. And as you inhale, breathe yourself back up to stand. When you're ready, use your exhale to turn the palms out. As you come into your standing back bend, again, keep the weight even in the feet. And inhale back to stand. Give yourself 2 more cycles. As you exhale and round, notice where the weight might want to shift and balance, adapt, adjust to keep the connection between all 3 points as steady as you can. Inhaling back up as you're ready. Exhaling, arching into the back body. And inhaling back to stand. Making it a half sun salutation as you're ready, keeping the weight steady as you can in the feet, round forward, feeling the weight shift back. Now, keeping the weight even in the feet should help you to already be in a more neutral place. Root down through the corners of the feet, all 3 evenly, and let that help you to extend up vertebra by vertebra by vertebra. Letting the palms turn out, letting the arms rise as you're ready. And then as you come down into your forward fold, soften at the knees. See if you can keep even weight through the corners of the feet, adjusting as you need to, making sure the heels stay heavy. And come down into your forward fold. As you're ready, staying steady with the connection to the feet, inhale to lengthen. And exhale to fold. Taking your hands to the hips, grounding through the corners of the feet, come up to stand. And again, as you stand, make sure as you come to vertical, you're in the place where the corners of the feet feel grounded, even if that's not your neutral standing normally. Taking 1 more cycle as you exhale, rotate the arms round forward with the upper back. Keep the feet steady. As you inhale, keep the ribs back, lengthen down through the low belly, down through the corners of the feet, up along the upper back, letting the arms rise. And with your exhale, softening at the knees, keeping the weight even as you can through the corners of the feet. Take your hands to your knees, extend long. And then bring your hands down. Bring yourself back, downward facing dog. Find that same steady connection through the corners of the feet. Would you need to shift or change in your dog to really feel that same sense of steadiness, even as the heels lift away from the mat? Then keeping that connection, glide forward to plank. See if you can keep reaching back, especially through the center of the heel, so that there's weight in the feet. And let that help to make it easier to lower. Coming down. Once you've come down, again, setting yourself up for whatever version of cobra you'd prefer. Arms by your sides, palms in line with the ribs, hands clasped back behind you. But notice what happens with the corners of the feet. Can you use engaging with the corners of the feet to help take some effort out of the low back, or to find a place where it's easier to move through the upper spine? As ever, giving yourself a couple of cycles here. Letting the front body lengthen. Moving from as many places in the back body as you can. Aiming, of course, for 3 cycles. Once you're ready, make your way back, downward facing dog. Dad, I seem to have lost your video, but I assume you're still there?
Yeah, my system dropped out
Oh, okay.
and I had to start it over again. And I don't know why the video dropped out, but
It won't come on.
I mean, as long as you're
There it
okay
is.
with.
There it is. Yoo-hoo.
Hey, you're back. Awesome.
Yeah.
It's okay to have you gone. I wanted to make sure you were still there.
Yeah.
Awesome. So let's go back to downward facing dog.
So from down dog, walk your feet together at the center of the back of the mat. And again, find the corners of the feet. See if you can start to feel which corner is it today that really helps you to feel like you're more plugged in, more connected, or more centered in your body. When you're ready, turn the toes towards the right, heels towards the left. And again, start from the feet. See if you can find the corners of the feet, whether they're lifted or completely touching down into the mat. And let that guide this rotating side bend to bring some space into that right side. Taking a breath or two. And when you're ready, bring the feet back, toes pointing forward, and then rotate the feet till the toes point towards the left, heels towards the right. Again, start from the feet. Can you find those corners in any way? Maybe they touch down, maybe they lift up. And how does that change and shape your experience of the pose? Giving yourself a breath or two. And then bring your feet back to center. And when you're ready, step your right foot forward. So we're going to start with the left heel down. I know we usually start in Highland, but we're going to take the left heel down so that both feet are grounded to the mat like Warrior Two. You may find that you need a shorter stance to really find the corners of the feet, but here with your hands for support, see if you can find those three corners in both feet. Center at the heel, base of the little toe, base of the big toe. Finding a place where not only are each of those points connected, but there's an even sense of connection between the back foot and the front foot. Then once you've found that connection, see if you can keep it as you come up into Warrior Two. As you rise up, you may find you need to shift and adjust where you're engaging from, where you're releasing and softening from to keep those corners of the feet rooting down into the mat as you rise up. Once you've found your Warrior Two, then take the left hand down into the left leg, right arm up towards the sky, coming into Reverse Warrior. Notice what happens with the feet here. See if you can get that same sense of connection down as you extend up and out through the fingers. Come back to center. And keeping that same anchored connection in that left foot, bring the right forearm down onto the right thigh. And rotating the left arm, let it come forward overhead into Parsvakonasana. Check in with the feet here. What would it mean to bring as much weight down through that left foot as it does through the right? For me, that's actually a really big shift. Give yourself a final breath here. And then bring the hands down onto the mat. And we'll switch sides. Left foot's going to go forward. Right foot's going to come back and down. Again, with your hands down, lifting the toes, whatever you need, find the corners of the feet. And notice how as you find the corners of the feet, not only do you get more grounded, but you also get more lifted. Anchoring the corners of the feet down sends the arches and that deep connective line from the arches all the way up through the hip flexors into the center of the body. When you're ready, again, playing with anchoring evenly through the feet, start to rise up. The arms come out towards the top and the bottom of the mat. Again, give yourself a breath or two here. Make sure you're really honestly finding the three corners of both feet. Maybe it's different from this side than from the last. We'll go towards Reverse Warrior. Right hand will move down, left arm will rise up. Again, as you reverse, how does that change the weight balance from front to back, side to side, within the corners of the feet? And then come back through Warrior Two. And bring that left forearm down onto the left thigh, right arm up. Again, rotating the whole arm so that there's space
for the shoulder blade to glide, the arm bone to move out overhead. And again, feel through the corners of the feet. Can you find even weight here? Do you need less bend, more bend in the knees to get there? Well, release your hands back down onto the mat. And step back, downward facing dog. Now let's try that same action in high lunge. Step your right foot forward. And now, with that left heel lifted, find the corners of the feet. See if you can really actively engage with that left heel, with that right heel, letting it connect you up into the hips. Noticing how that might help you to get more square and more even through your center. And then when you're ready, start to rise up. As you rise, taking the arms up whenever you're ready, let your focus be on the corners of the feet. What changes as you shift? What if you shifted the weight towards your toes? What if you rooted more through the heels? Which one brings you to the place where you feel more connected to the ability to root down and rise up? Once you've found that place, let your hands come down in front of you. And as you're ready, take a twist. As you twist, see if you can keep grounding through the three corners of both feet. Again, maybe you keep the hands at heart center. Maybe you open the arms, taking one hand down into the mat. But keep your focus in the connection between those 3 points in the feet. Give yourself a final breath here. And then release the hands. And we'll switch to the other side. So again, as you get the left foot forward, take the time to find the corners of both feet. You might notice that anchoring the corners of the feet actually asks your legs to work a whole lot more. Often we work only in certain ways and with certain familiar muscles, and not always from the deeper places. See if you can really invite playing with this integration of the feet to help you feel different and differently into the poses. When you're ready, rising up. Again, as you rise up, really working to keep that connection in both feet through those corners. Arms can rise as you feel ready. Notice whether lifting the arms shifted that connection. Do you need to re-engage with any of those points? And then as you're ready, let your hands come down in front of you. Again, as you rotate into the twist, see if you can keep the weight between the right foot and the left foot, and within each foot, between the three corners, as even and dynamic as you can. Even doesn't mean it stays static. It means we shift and adjust to find the place where we can feel the corners of the feet rooting down and the arches of the feet helping to connect us upwards. Give yourself the last couple of breaths here. And then release your hands and step back, downward facing dog. And when you're ready, walk your hands back towards your feet. You're going to end up in a forward fold here. And from your forward fold, take your hands behind your hips, interlace your fingers. Get balanced with the feet. And then take your shoulders towards your ears, towards the sky. And when you're ready, start to lift the hands up away from the hips. As always, you can keep your spine parallel to the mat, or you can bow forward. Just make sure you're keeping the collarbones broad as you open into the shoulders and the upper back. And of course, the weight even in the corners of the feet. Shifting the focus to the outer hip. Start to bend the right knee and rotate your chest. And play here. What happens when you keep the weight more even through the feet? Does focusing on the feet give you more access to opening in the outer hip? I know it does for me. Take a breath or two here. And start to make your way back to center. Again, keeping the weight even in the corners of the feet. Start to let the left knee bend, the chest rotate. Again, noticing where the weight shifts and softening from wherever you need to let go from to allow the feet to stay grounded in a more balanced way. And taking a breath or two. And come back to center. And rooting down through your feet, come all the way up to stand. So we're going to play with coming into warrior 3. That's where the leg extends back behind us, maybe with the hands at prayer, maybe with the arms out to the side. And transitioning from there into half moon. So I'm going to have you grab a block because our focus here is going to be on how moving with the feet helps us to play with our balance. And you might as well have a block there in case you need it. So the block's going to go forward of you by maybe a meter, 2.5 feet, wherever your hand can go to catch the block as we play with this action. So it's not going to be super far forward, but you may need to move it around to find the right place. So now, once you've placed your block, either by lifting and spreading the toes or not, find the corners of your feet. We're going to keep the right foot grounding down into the mat. And we're going to take the left leg back behind us and hinge forward so that the left leg is reaching back as if you were going to plant it on the wall back behind you. And your upper body is folding towards the mat. So when you feel ready, shift your weight into the right foot. I find it helps to take a tiny little bend in the left knee and start to hinge at the hips to take the left leg back behind you. And think about planting the corners of that left foot on the wall back behind you. We're going to try just this action a couple of times. So see if you can bring yourself more parallel to the mat. Hands can be at heart center or out to the sides. And then rise back up again. Bringing the foot back down onto the mat. Again, finding even standing. So let's try it one more time on this leg with the right foot down, left leg moving back behind. Again, see if you can feel the connection through the left foot as you take it up away from the mat. So first find that even grounding, and then when you're ready, start to move into the pose and see if you can really reach back evenly through the corners of the left foot. Nice, Dad. Give yourself a breath or two here. Noticing what happens in the right foot. Can the weight stay even there as well? And then coming back up. Shake out the legs if you need to. So we have a second side to try. When you're ready, find that even sense of standing. This time the left foot will stay connected to the ground and the right one will reach back behind us if it was going to plant onto the wall. So again, as you're ready, first find that place of balanced connection and then see if you can keep it reaching through the 3 corners of the right foot, hinging at the hips, trying to stay as even in the weight on the left foot as you can as you hinge forward towards warrior 3. Noticing how you have to shift, how your mind has to focus on those different places and how that might help you to be steadier in your balance. And then when you're ready, come back up. So we'll take that action one more time here with the left leg. So as you feel ready, finding the corners of the feet, feeling, of course, the arch rise up as the corners of the feet root down so that you're really using your feet to integrate the center of the body. And then as you feel ready, start to make your way into warrior 3. Again, as you lift the right leg, as you hinge your hips, see if you can reach through the corners of that right foot, as well as keeping the weight as even as you can in the left as you hinge forward. Again, really reaching back through that back foot as if you were going to plant it on the wall back behind you. And then make your way back up. Nice.
So we're going to play with one more standing balance variation, growing out of that warrior three pose. And what we're going to explore as an experiment is using turning that back foot once we've lifted away from the mat to take us into half moon Ardha Chandrasana. So where we were in warrior three, our chests are parallel to the mat. The lifted leg toes are pointing down towards the mat. But in half moon, the chest opens towards the side and the lifted leg toes turn out towards the side. So what we're going to see if we can play with, total experiment here, right, is using turning that lifted leg to bring us into half moon. And this is where the block is going to become essential so that we're not fighting for balance. Let's start by balancing on the right leg. So you're going to shift your weight into the right foot. And first you're going to find warrior three. So once you've grounded evenly through the corners of the feet, then start to take that left leg back behind you. And then here, bring your right hand down onto your block. So you're going to find this warrior three pose with your hand on the block. And it might be easier, Dad, if you take the block up to its taller height so you can be a little more lifted. There you go. And then see if you can let that back foot come up away from the mat. There you go. Now we're going to try to open this pose towards the long side of the mat by starting with the lifted foot. Turn the lifted foot towards the side and let that spiral come up until your chest opens towards the side. And then maybe take that top arm up. Yeah, nice. And then when you're ready, start to slowly release. Coming back to center. So much fun. So when you're ready, block will shift, of course, over in line with the left foot. And first we'll come into warrior three. So we'll take the left leg up, we'll hinge at the hips, chest will stay facing towards the mat at first. And then we'll turn open with that lifted leg to bring ourselves into half moon. So again, anchoring through the corners of the feet, really finding that dynamic balance there, steadiness and liftedness. Start to take that right leg back behind you. Again, reaching through the corners of the feet, trying to stay grounded through the corners of the standing foot. Taking that left hand down onto the block again so that you have some steadiness to play with as you need it. Now see if you can let this pose begin with the lifted foot. Turn the foot. Let that turn the leg. Let that turn the hip. Let that turn your chest. And then maybe take the top arm up towards the sky. See if you can still reach through the corners of the feet as you find this shape. And then slowly release. So I don't know about you, but I kind of want to try that one more time without the block, just for fun. So you might wish to try it one more time with the block, or you might wish to go straight into like maybe that standing figure four pose, Dad, if you don't feel like you want to take one more cycle through these standing balancing poses, or even just coming into like a tree pose with a foot at the thigh if the hinging forward doesn't feel right. So choosing a balancing pose, I guess is what I'm saying. Let's try it one more time. So again, if you're playing with the warrior three to Ardha Chandrasana transition, then you'll be spiraling in the back leg. If you're in a standing pose, same variables apply. Can you find the corners of the feet? And can you let the corners of the feet help you to integrate your center? If you're playing with Ardha Chandrasana, see if you can let it unfold from the rotating of the back foot. Of course, come out as you feel ready. Taking the second side as you feel ready. Really working the connection in the foot and letting that be the foundation, literally, but also integratively for the steadiness of the pose. and the feeling of strength and connection in your body. Giving yourself a breath or two as you get there. Falling out as you need to. And then coming back up. Ooh. Nice job. Once you come out, again, shake out the legs if you need to. And then let's do a little release for the hips. So I am feeling like thread the needle is the place for me, but thread the needle, pigeon, standing figure four. I'm excited about thread the needle because it lets me get off my feet. Of course, as you set yourself up, whether you're coming into pigeon, taking the right shin forward, or thread the needle, taking the right ankle onto the left knee, or of course the standing variation if you're down for more standing poses, integrate the feet. See if you can find the corners of the feet before you move deeper into the pose, and let that help you to adjust, softening, engaging, bringing awareness into the center of the body from the feet. And then as you're ready, move deeper. Of course, as you move deeper, watch for a disconnect in the corners of the feet. Can you keep all three corners alive and a part of supporting and integrating your body from the inside as you ask the outer hips to release? We'll be here for a few breaths. Of course, variations abound. If you have a variation, rocking the legs and thread the needle, rotating to the side and pigeon, whatever it might be. Feel free to give yourself a few breaths, exploring. And as you feel ready, start to make your way out. Taking all the time you need to get there, switch to the second side, whether that's left shin forward for pigeon or left ankle to the right knee for thread the needle. And find the corners of the feet. It's amazing to me, for me, it's always the heels, how much finding the center of my heel can really shift what's happening in the center of the body. And let's see if you can keep that same sense of presence and connection through the corners of the feet as you move towards your full expression of the pose, whatever that might look like. And of course, if you added in any variations on the second side, please feel free to bring those in this side as well. Taking the last couple breaths here. And making your way back out. If you aren't on your back, go ahead and make your way there. If you're already on your back, let both feet come down onto the mat and finding the corners of the feet, letting that bring your pelvis into a more neutral place where the front plane is parallel to the floor. We're going to come into Supta Gomukhasana. Often standing balances work the outer hips pretty intensively. And we're going to try to open a little bit into that space. And when you're ready, bring your knees in towards you so your feet come up off the floor. And cross the right knee over top of the left. So as you cross, your feet are going to swing out towards the opposite sides. And see if you can find the corners of the feet. Notice how finding the bases of the toes and the center of the heel might change what's happening in the hips, the belly, and the low back. Now, keeping that connection through the feet, make contact with your legs. It can be down by the ankles, it can be by the backs of the thighs, anywhere in between. The more you kick your feet out towards the sides, and the more your knees come in as your sitting bones reach down, the more intense things will be in the outer hips. But see if you can maintain some of that awareness of that extension and connection through those anchor points in the foot. We'll be here a couple of breaths. And as you feel ready, start to make your way out. And taking all the time you need, switch sides. The left knee goes over top of the right. Again, as the feet swing out to the sides, before you go deep, find the corners of the feet. Let that help you to soften at the tops of the thighs. Let it help you to release the sitting bones in the outer hips so that there's a more neutral place to move from. And then keeping those connections through the corners of the feet, catching the hold wherever you can reach, the ankles, backs of the thighs, letting the feet kick out towards the sides, again, letting the sitting bones connect down towards the mat, the knees moving towards you. It's usually in the hip of the top leg that you feel the intensity of the stretch. Notice how playing, maybe even cycling through the corners of the feet might change what you experience. See if you can find what kinds of reach through those corners help you to refine and deepen this pose in a way that supports you today. And as you're ready, ease your way back out again. And we'll finish by taking a final twist. So if you have a favorite twist, please take it. Or extend the right leg out long, tuck the left toes back behind the right knee, and using your right hand, guide that left knee across and over towards the right. So again, even in a twist that's a little bit more passive, if you like, you can always play with the corners of the feet and see what it might uncover for you. What happens when you reach through the corners of the feet on the extended leg or on the bent leg? How does that shift or change the experience of this twist, this rotational spiral? Be letting your head turn opposite the direction of your knee. And start to ease your way back out. And of course, taking the second side. That might be extending the left leg, tucking the right toes. That's where I was. But if you were taking a different variation, please take it. And of course, guiding that right leg across and over. And if you like, really using that connection through the corners of the feet to help you find a place where there's more presence and integration through the legs, through the center of the body. Maybe noticing whether that changes your experience of the twist. Letting your head very gently rotate away from the direction of the knee. And then start your release. And making your way onto your back, let's come towards Shavasana. So as always, if there are final movements that your body is calling out for, or if you would like to take a supported back bend as a part of your Shavasana, please do. Find a place where you can really allow yourself
to come back into a place where you're deeply aware of the support of the earth underneath you. Once you've found a comfortable place, give yourself a couple of cleansing breaths. Breathing in through your nose. And like a little sigh out through your mouth. Letting each exhale be an invitation to soften and sink a little more deeply into the support of your mat, support of the floor. And then as you feel ready, letting the focus of your attention ride with the easy, steady flow of your breath. See if you can soften any pushing or pulling on your breath. Let your body instead be breathed. Notice how little effort is required to let your breath flow in and flow out when you really soften and allow that movement to take place deep in your center. Very, very sweetly start to deepen your breathing. Let your breath bring you back towards the surface. Bring a little gentle movement back into your body, wiggling your fingers and your toes. And as you're ready, let that expand in any way that feels right. Moving from the inside back up. And then as you feel ready, bend your knees, make your way over onto one side. I'm taking all the time you need to get there. You can wait up to sit.
As you find a comfortable seat, let your hands come together in front of your heart and take a moment to bow your head in. Thank yourself for making time to practice. And then bring your thumbs to your third eye and bow forward to close your practice.
Namaste.
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 Mm.